Bulls Super Rugby preview for 2020. Finally get around to a South African team. It's not that I put them last, it's just that those squads usually get confirmed a fair bit later than the Aussie and New Zealand squads. The same is true this year. But finally, I think the Bulls one's out, the Sharks are out. I think the Stormers one's just been confirmed too. And I think even maybe the Lions out. So, yeah, it's good. We get a bit of a picture about how the South African Conference might stack up. I will talk a little bit about the Bulls 2019 season as well because I didn't get a chance to review their season from last year. They did pretty well. They went out in the quarterfinal to the Hurricanes away, but I think given the Bulls had been kind of out of the competitive end of Super Rugby for a few years, it was nice to see them kind of getting back up to it. Whether they can repeat that this year does remain to be seen because there's a lot of players leaving or have left the side, which I will talk to in a moment. The coach remains the same. It's Porter Heyman. I think he did a pretty admirable job. He was not the first choice coach, but he stepped up to the role and, like I said, got the team to the playoffs. So, yeah, I hope to see some development of some players from him this year, and it will be interesting to see what he can get out of this team because I think after taking over from John Mitchell, I think he did a pretty good job. So, you Bulls fans can let me know. I looked at the stats from the Bulls from 2019 just before I get onto the 2020 squad. There were some things that were good, some things that, on paper anyway, statistically don't look that fantastic. The number one team for kicking penalties. It perhaps speaks a wee bit to the way that Heyman wanted to set the team up. They're 12th for tries, so they finished in the playoffs. They're at the bottom end of the tier for tries. They're at the number one spot for penalties. So overall, they're 7th, which is probably about fair for like average points per game. 4th for kick meters, but 15th for run meters. So again, that kind of speaks to a tactical decision by the coaches. They were, though, 3rd for getting over the advantage line. So that's a good thing. When they've got the ball in hand and they decide to run it, they're going to go forward. 1st for pick and drives. So again, tactical. They're 1st for their line-out percentage, so winning their own line-out. So they had the dream locks to do that with as well. And their goal-kicking percentage was 4th overall, 80%. They were 13th for going 7 or more phases, so not a real possession team. 3rd for errors, which is a bit disappointing, and 14th for forcing ruck and more penalties, so not a huge team at the breakdown. Penalties actually kind of worked out pretty even. There are some teams who you look at who concede a ton and win kind of very few. The Bulls were 7th for winning penalties and 6th for conceding, so it pretty much balances out. So, looking at the lineup, you might expect them to employ the boot a fair bit this season as well. I do not have a problem with that. I don't think the Bulls were a boring team to watch last year at all. I had lots of fun watching the Bulls. So if you're winning, then I think that's the main thing. And he's certainly got some players to set the game alight. I will admit I watched the highlights of the Bulls and Lions game from that Superhero Sunday or whatever it was. And that game was kind of defense optional. So I don't know that we can read too much into that. I think by the time they hit the competitive matches, there will be a bit of a difference. But yeah, overall, I think if you're rating the Bulls on their season from last year, I think it's a solid pass. They showed improvement. They got a decent result. Going away to the Hurricanes in a close game in the quarterfinal, definitely no shame. There are areas they're strong, areas they are not. And yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how they go for this season. The 2020 team is on the board. They have let go, or some guys have left. Like Scott Brits has retired. That leaves a bit of a gap at hooker. The lock situation, that's pretty bad in terms of the names they've lost. They've lost Ludiaka, or they didn't play that many games last year through injury. Jason Jenkins, underrated player, and Achias Neyman. That's pretty disappointing. There's others as well, but those are kind of some of the big names. Loose forwards, Giannis Kirsten's gone to the Chiefs in the Premiership, so that's Exeter Chiefs. Hunter Liebenberg's gone to the Premiership as well. Dwayne Vermeulen has left. He's gone back to Japan. Andre Warner's gone to the Lions in terms of scrum halves. They've lost both their... they've still got Mani Libok, but they've lost Manitz Bosov, who I don't remember getting much game time last year, though, to be fair. And Andre Pollard, World Cup winner. That's a huge name to replace, especially when you look at how many points they scored from penalties. Jesse Creel's gone to Japan. Travis Ishmael's gone to the Premiership. Duncan Matthews left for the Lions. So there's a fair few big names to replace. Some of the guys they brought in, you Bulls fans will probably have to give me some insights into how you think they're looking. But I still think there's enough of a core squad for them to impress. Like, you look at the props they've got: Geboka, Herbst, Matanzima, Inyekane, Steenkamp, that's Gerhard Steenkamp, and Van der Vesthuizen. So Steenkamp has come up from Tux. I don't know much about him at all. I don't know anything about him. Geboka and Inyekane were you kind of guys last year who were playing the majority of the minutes. I guess if there's one thing you would say about the Bulls props is they didn't have kind of 40, 50 minute props. They had 60, 70 minute props. So if one of those main guys gets injured, that will be a test of the depth. Hookers, you've got Els, Grobelaar, Louis van der Vesthuizen, who's from Namibia, and Jaco Vasaki. With Skalkbrit's gone, Vasaki last year played 11 games. You had Els who played 8 games. I don't think Grobelaar played, and Louis van der Vesthuizen's come from Namibia. So who's your number one guy? I guess Vasaki, and we'll see how they line up. The locking situation has had, with all those guys leaving, they've had to bring in a bunch of new guys. Like Andreas Ferreira, I think he was signed by the Canes last year but didn't end up playing because he got injured. Ian Groenwald from Griquas, I don't know him. Jean-André Krier, well, I know him. He's come back from France. He's another one of the guys who seems to be a trend of former Springboks and former South African players like coming back to South Africa to finish their career. So that's going to be cool to see him back. Ron Nortja from the Currie Cup team, and Rhino Pieterse, excuse the pronunciation, from the under-21 side. You've still got Tim Agaba. There's Nonkon Twana from the Cheetahs. Again, I don't know him. I haven't seen hardly any Pro 14 involving the Cheetahs this year. Ruan Steenkamp's still there. He played 10 games last season. Josh Strauss has come back from Sale. This is in terms of your loose forwards, by the way. So that's good news. He's been playing in the UK for a long time. Ace, that's Muller Ace. I don't think he played last year. Marco van Staden played 10 games, and Vian Voslu played one game for the Sharks last year. Plus you got Jeandre Rudolph from the Pumas in the Currie Cup. So there's a whole lot of change. Like, the front row doesn't look too changed, with the loss of a few guys. But yeah, the second row is just all new, and then the back row is partly shifted. So yeah, I'm keen to see what the starting 15 for the Bulls is going to look like, especially in the second and third, while the second row and the back row. So any insights you guys can provide into some of those new signings, I will be keen to see. Number 9 is pretty stable. You got Ambrose Papier, Ivan van Sale still there from last year. That's pretty steady, and they've got Marco Jansen van Vuren from the Currie Cup side. So Andre Warner's left. But yeah, I think with Papier and van Sale, you're pretty happy with that. Mornay Steyn has come back from France. That is a blast from the past. Is he going to start, or is Mani Libok going to get a crack? Libok played a couple of those games. He started when Pollard was injured. Like, it was at the tour in New Zealand. They drew games, I think, Highlanders and Blues, or was it the Aussie tour? Libok definitely started a couple of games and they played okay. Different player from Pollard. If they are going to go kicking accuracy necessary, then maybe Mornay is the man. I haven't seen him play for a few years, so I will be keen to see what kind of form he is in. Midfielders, you still got Odendahl, you still got Dylan Sage, but they've brought in Nauda back from the Lions, Manus Potgieter from the Blue Bulls 15, don't know him, and Nafi Tuatavaki, whose name sounds familiar, but it may not be him that I'm thinking of. He seems, from what I looked him up, he seems to be a bit of a careerman, New Zealand born, played many years in the UK, seems like a bit of a journeyman player, like I think 30 years old. So yeah, the midfield one minus Jesse Creel, I guess, doesn't look quite as good as it did last year. Udendahl, I think, will be starting 12, and then we'll see how the rest of the guys fit into place. Outside backs, you still got Cornell Hendricks. Actually, he played centre. He played 13 at that game I watched the highlights in the other day, so maybe they're going to shift him to the midfield. Johnny Kotzer, Roscoe Speckman, Jade Stickling. He only played 3 games last year. Galant played 12. It's good to see him still there. Richard Creel's come up from the Blue Bulls under-21 team. And Devon Rousseau, I think he scored a couple of tries the other day too. So outside backs, I think you're looking all right with the likes of Kotzer, Speckman, Stickling, Galant, Rousseau. I think that's pretty good. That's very competitive. So there's plenty for Porter Heyman to work with there. The midfield, second row, yeah. It's always going to be the forwards, isn't it? So, yeah, I look forward to seeing some of these guys I don't know. I also look forward to see some of these guys who are coming back, like Strauss, like Kriya, how they're going to go when they come back, Monet Stain, how they're going to go when they come back to Super Rugby. Are they going to find the game a bit quick, or are they kind of that wise enough to be able to adapt to the play? That will be pretty interesting to watch. The bookies are not giving these guys much of a chance. I guess with all the names that have left, like their 12th favourites, so predicted to finish well out of it. Not predicted to do all that well at all. Actually, bear with me a second. I need to look at their fixtures list. Right, I found it. So I did write down the whole list. Fixtures for Super Rugby teams. The Bulls, their fixtures list. It's not the best. It's not the worst. Away games in South Africa early, Sharks and Stormers. If they lose those two, they could be chasing the rest of the season. Bye in the third week. Then home to the Blues, Jaguares and Highlanders. So a 3-game run at home will certainly be nice, but that's immediately followed up by their Australasian trip. So they got the Reds, Waratahs, Hurricanes and Chiefs away. And then immediately back to play the Lions at home before the bye. So that's kind of unfortunate timing. I think if they had their bye immediately after their trip to Australia and New Zealand and then a week's rest before they play the Lions, I think they're looking in a bit of a better position to come back and play a rival team when you're jet lagged. Is not going to be any easy, especially when you look at the Lions, because they've got the Sharks in Johannesburg the week before, so they'll be fresh. It's not far from Joburg to Pretoria, so yeah, that could be a factor. Sunwolves at home, Brumbies at home, Lions away, Sharks home, Jaguares away, and Stormers at home. Man, that is tough. Last 3 games, South Africa, Pretoria, Buenos Aires, and Pretoria. So yeah, it's tough. Actually, I think I might have been a bit too kind to say it was because I kind of rated all of the schedules as kind of good, so-so, or poor. I'm starting to look at that and think it's a bit poor. So yeah, we'll see how they go. I hope the Bulls can do well. Yeah, they're a team which is going to be much changed from last year, but I do have faith in the coach to actually, get things organised, to get things in order, and for his players to enact that game plan and hopefully get some results. So we'll see how they go. All the South African teams are going to be dealing with the loss of some of their international players after the World Cup. That's just a thing. New Zealand teams as well. Aussie teams too. So, yeah, how they bounce back will be interesting. You guys let me know your thoughts on the Bulls' chances for 2020. Have you seen their kits for 2020? What do you guys think? Yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.